government's spring economic forecast and asking a simple question: has the rainy day already arrived? And if so, is enough being done for the so-called squeezed middle? Ministers led by Simon Harris and Jack Chambers are warning of global uncertainty, rising energy costs linked to conflict in the Middle East, and even the risk of stagflation. Yet at the same time, the message from government is that the economy will keep growing and that budget surpluses remain essential to protect Ireland's finances. But with households and businesses already feeling the pressure, is that the right balance? Join me to discuss this in studio is the Clarecastle Sinn Féin councillor Tommy Guilfoyle, and on the line we have the Bodyke Fine Gael TD Joe Cooney. And thanks to both of you for being with us on the show. And Joe, I might go to yourself first, because the government has said the economy is going to continue to grow even under a severe global shock. But perhaps are we experiencing that severe global shock already with everything that's gone on in the Middle East and the recent fuel protests and so on? Are we already in a rainy day scenario given global instability and rising energy costs?
Correct. Good morning, Alan and Tommy. Look, first of all, I suppose the main message is that the economy is still growing and we're not heading for a recession. Even with all the global uncertainty that's happening at the moment, and we're all well aware that growth has been revised down a bit, but that's understandable given what's happening. Again, there is serious concern out there. As we're well aware, the cost of living and energy costs are rising, and that's a serious concern. But again, also we have a number of crises we're dealing with as well, as regards the housing, the health, the fuel, even the roads at this stage, because of the inclement weather conditions over the winter months. Unfortunately, some of them have gone into bad disrepair. There is concern out there. There's no point saying there isn't. There is a lot happening, but it is important that funding will be available going forward to make sure all these crises are dealt with, which the government are commissioned to do. But as both of us know, it can happen only over time. There is concern. I can see why people are concerned out there. But by the government working on behalf of the people, my belief is, yes, there is uncertainty, but things will improve going forward.
But Joe, you listed quite a lot of issues and crises there. I don't know about the listeners, but it sounds to me like it's pretty close to the definition of a rainy day. There's a lot happening now, and I know you're saying the government will need money to deal with all these situations, but they're happening now, I think is what listeners will say. And where are the support? We've seen the supports for fuel and so on, but there are people, as you know, who feel there should be more there. Should the government not go crazy, but still be, I suppose, helping in some of those areas or to offset some of those crises that you listed off?
There is funding being invested into all those crises at the moment. That had been happening before the war started, but as we're well aware, since the war started in the Middle East, unfortunately, issues have changed, and there's no point saying they haven't. As you are well aware, the government has responded, providing support of over 750 million in the last number of weeks to help households, businesses with the cost of fuel and energy. That is very welcome, as we know. We all love to see more being done, but unfortunately, we all talk about the rainy day, and we don't know when a rainy day is going to come, that we won't have funding. So the government has to be careful on the way they're investing funding into the different concerns, but also we have to take the concerns of the people on board, which the government are doing. We've seen with the process what the outcome was. There is a lot of concern out there. As I've mentioned, the cost of living and the different crises we have to continue dealing with them. We as a government will continue to do that, hoping that the wars in other parts of the world will calm down and will help our situation going forward.
Yeah, we all hope that, but obviously what's happened in the Middle East is still continuing on, and obviously war in Ukraine as well. Tommy, just to bring you in, I mean, just drove a point, you listed all those situations where there are issues, but he feels the government are supporting and they can't just dish out tons of money because they may need some of these crises could go on longer than we think, and they need money to continue to help people to offset the potential impacts of those. And Jack Chambers warning of possible stagflation, that's low growth and high inflation. How serious is that risk in your view, and do the government have to be careful, even bringing the fact that the economy is going to continue to grow, albeit not as much as expected?
Good morning, Ellen. Good morning, Joe. Look, Ellen, you mentioned the rainy day fund, and unfortunately to a lot of people out there, everyday people, it's actually lashing rain at the moment, but no government minister or government official is listening. Ireland may not be technically in a recession on paper, but for many families, workers and small businesses, it feels like we're in the middle of one. Because when prices rise faster than pay, when bills outpace breathing room, and when local shops are fighting just to stand still, the lived economy is hurting. And when national figures say otherwise, I can tell you, Al, from a lived experience, that people and families are hurting, workers are hurting, and the SMEs are hurting, and we need to do more, especially starting off with energy costs. We need to take the taxes off of energy costs more, because energy costs bleed into the whole system and take money out of everybody's pocket. I, as a worker, I have to put fuel in my car and home heating oil, and you said that it's not raining today, Al, but it's fair nippy out there, and if you're a vulnerable person, an elderly person, or a person with a disability, I can guarantee you need to have your home heating oil on today, and if you can't afford it, then you're going cold in your home.
That might be something that the government are looking at for the budget, Tommy. They could be looking at potential further fuel supports or energy credits, and maybe they're holding off on the home heating oil until later in the year when we get to winter and people will really feel that reduction in the cost of home heating oil, rather than pulling the trigger too early and doing it now.
And look, government excuses for refusing to bring forward a meaningful cost of living packages are no longer acceptable. Government in Tips face a budget surplus of 9.2 billion, almost twice as it was projected. It is not good enough for Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael to bring forward half measures in cost of living crisis when we're in the middle of the crisis right now. Deal with it now, and if it has to be prolonged into the winter to help vulnerable people or targeted measures, let that be the case. But people are suffering now. Businesses are suffering now because people don't have money to spend in their businesses, and businesses are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And if people don't have disposable income, businesses suffer, and it's a knockdown effect all the way, and that means job losses and communities going backwards. We're in the middle of a crisis. This is a crisis, and the rainy fund is for crisis. So let's deal with it now and put forward proper measures so that people can have a few bob in their pocket to live a normal life.
What you make of what Tommy had to say, Joe? Is the government being too cautious and not committing to supports now? I know you're saying they are helping in some of those areas, and they kind of have to keep a watching brief because, you know, be it the war in the Middle East or other scenarios, they could go on for some time. But, you know, in the spring economic forecast, we're hearing there be a general government surplus of 9.2 billion. There is money still coming in, and they can, while not having to break the bank, they could still help more than they currently are.
Well, I can assure Tommy that the ministers and the government, the Oireachtas members in it, we are listening to the people out there. We are well aware of the concerns out there. And the government hadn't ruled out more cost of living supports if they are needed going forward. And that's been looked at. And this would include the reintroduction of the energy credits later in the year if the electricity prices continue to increase, which there is serious concern about. And also the government support in response to the cost of living crisis rate have been among the highest in Europe. So that's a massive achievement for the government. I do agree with you, Alan. We have to be careful. I mean, government department need to be careful with spending of money and make sure this money is used properly and widely.
But is there a middle ground on that where you don't have to be spending recklessly, but there is wriggle room there. The government could be lending a bit more financial support to people in key areas more than they currently are at the moment, whilst not going totally overboard.
Well, I mentioned the different crises we had at the offset, and there is funding being invested into those, and a lot of funding trying to get us out of those crises. I do agree with you. More could be invested in the future if needed. We are well aware of all the crises. Tommy also mentioned there about unemployment. As we're all well aware, we've record employment at the moment of 2.83 million people in the country working, which is simply fantastic. And the other thing that we need to be giving consideration to is a massive increase in our population as well. And that's putting strain on services and whatever the case may be. And all them things have to be given consideration, and we don't want to be left at some stage in government that we don't have continued funding to invest into these different services.
I take the point about the increase in population, but it's not like that happens overnight. I mean, we can project forward and see the way the numbers are going, and shouldn't the government plan appropriately, accordingly, to deal with an increase in population?
That's what the government are doing, in fairness, because of the increase in population. But as we can see ourselves, crisis can come overnight. We didn't think the fuel crisis would have come to what it came to. Unfortunately, it did. And we had to give support to try and help out community, help out businesses and households and whatever the case may be. And Tommy also highlighted the cost of heating houses and that. In fairness, under the CEI grant, there's a lot been done by the department to help elderly people in those houses, which is vital and important. But again, it's not easy to get it all right overnight, but the important thing is we have to keep supporting the people going forward. That's vital and important, and that's what this government will be doing.
Okay. Tommy, in fairness, the government, they do have to, set significant money aside, or certainly we hope, for budget 2027. And also they're pointing to capital investment in housing, energy and infrastructure as key priorities. And there'll be a lot of money needed to make improvements in those areas, particularly in housing and infrastructure. Is that not the right priority plan long term, in particular in capital investment?
And no one is disputing the need for capital investment, and it's about time this government did stand up and start doing the things they need to do to tackle what they already have as a housing crisis. They have it for years now, right? So let's not mix up these two issues. We're currently living through a cost of living crisis, right? There's this, we have everybody in employment, 2.83 million people, as Joe said. But some of them people are in jobs, Alan, they're paying minimum wage or just above that. A lot of them people actually are in them jobs, and they're finding it very hard to live at the moment and pay for bills, and they're not keeping the bills paid, Alan. That's the problem. They're missing bills. If a country goes into recession at a big level, they're saying that 2 consecutive quarters of falling GDP. But what if there's 2 consecutive weeks or months of a family or a person living on their own not paying their bills and can't get that back, and end up going to the credit union or using a credit card to pay a bill, and they can't get that back?
But Tommy, everyone's feeling the pinch. I mean, look, the minimum wage has gone up, and also businesses are having to deal with those rises. They've got increased costs as well, energy costs, supply chain issues, and you have to consider them as well as the employees. It's affecting everybody.
100%. And when I spoke first, I said businesses are suffering because we don't have disposable income to spend in businesses. We need to see the excise duty completely taken off home eating oil, green diesel and petrol made more affordable, and that will help businesses run their business. And they're suffering because of the costs of fuel and deliveries, and everything else gets spread across the cost of your business. So the government needs to take these measures and take them today and not tomorrow, and stop with we look at it in the future. The cost of fuel has to come down now, and if it doesn't come down now, Ellen, we're going to be facing into deeper and deeper and deeper cost of living crisis, and that's not good enough by anybody's standard.
Joe, the middle income earners, the so-called squeeze middle, we know they weren't best pleased after last October's budget. There were reports in recent weeks that the government were cognizant of that and would look to address that in this October's budget. Can you see that happening? If so, what kind of relief should they expect? Or have those plans changed because of the extra support package of €505 million to address fuel costs that was brought out recently? And if there are going to be more of those packages between now and the budget, are the squeeze middle going to be missed? Are they going to miss out or be ignored again?
Look, the budget's been announced on the 7th of October, and it's important because the people, the squeeze middle people, and the working class people who are working hard to run their businesses, run their jobs, and most importantly, supporting this country, they need to be looked after in the next budget. I've been already talking.
Do you think they will be?
Yes, my belief is yes, because I have a lot of pressure put on as regards the working people. What's it cost them to get to work? We're well aware of the different costs out there. We're not going to go through them, but they do need to be looked after going forward. Them are the people who's helping to support our country, who's paying the tax into our country, and they are the people that need to be looked after. And yes, we will have different briefings on the budget goes forward, and I can tell you the backbenchers will be pushing hard for those people looked after when the budget will be announced on the 7th of October. And it's important because them people are vital, and without those people, where would our country be? Where would the taxes be coming into the coffers? So they're important and vital, and it's important, long as everyone else in the country needs to be looked at as well, but the working people are finding it tough at the moment, so they do need to be given consideration.
Final word to you, Tommy. Do you think the squeeze middle do need help? Will they get help in the budget? And how would your party, how would Sinn Féin support immediate intervention?
Immediate intervention, and the squeeze middle are being squeezed beyond repair. They need this assistance now. Think about the squeeze middle. You're talking about 2 to 3 family cars. You're talking about people going and coming back from work, doing the school runs, doing the drop-offs, doing whatever activities their kids are still in.
So how would Sinn Féin help them?
100%. Removing excise duty off of fuel right now at the moment in the current crisis that we're in. It's a small hit on tax return for the government. They're running a surplus of 9.2 billion, Alan. So if they brought down the cost of fuel, that would assist everybody in our community, the squeezed middle and everybody else, and SMEs. Everyone will get the benefit of that, but they refuse to bring it down any further than what they have. They brought down green diesel and home heating oil by measly pence.
They have handed out €750 million over the past few weeks in supports. That's a not insignificant sum of money.
That is not, no, and no one is saying it is, Alan, but that was after there was massive protest. They had to be brought to the table, kicking and screaming, refusing to bring back the Dáil to actually do that small change they made. What we're saying is that's not good enough, that's not enough, and we need proper cost of living measures taken now and not tomorrow.